All right, Jay. Speaking of Chelsea disappointments, I'll give you one, and that's Roman Abramovich's speech or
His
statement or lack thereof. If I can find it, tell me what you think this sounds like, or what you make of this. So I'm quoting from the Chelsea website. This is the statement from the owner of Chelsea. During my nearly 20-year ownership of Chelsea FC, I have always viewed my role as a custodian of the club, whose job it is ensuring that we are successful as we can be. That we are as successful as we can be today, as well as build for the future, while also playing a positive role in our communities. I have always taken decisions with the club's best interest at heart. I remain committed to these values. That is why I am today giving trustees of Chelsea's charitable foundation the stewardship and care of Chelsea FC. I believe that currently they're in the best position to look after the interests of the club, players, staff, and fans. And that is the end of it. He is not saying why or what's going on, and we all know what's going on in the background. There is Russia invading Ukraine. Depending on what news outlet you listen to and what side of the agenda you're listening to, you've got your own views about that. Whether it's justified, whether it's wrong, whether it's an invasion, whether it's World War III, you've got your own view on that. But this is Abramovich's statement about his role as Chelsea owner, that he's stepping away, giving it to the Chelsea trustees to run, but he's still the owner. But he's not saying all that much in this particular statement. What does the statement say or mean to anyone, if anything?
Well, because it doesn't say anything, nothing. But as you say, we know what is the narrative that is taking place in the background. The thing about Abramovich is Abramovich has ties to Putin. Yep. Right, and with him owning a club in the UK being part of NATO, there's that line in the sand, and there are those two sides. We know on Tuesday, like, Russian troops marched into Ukraine, and that is then being reported as the invasion of Ukraine. And NATO are Ukraine sympathizers, and therefore, obviously, the community in England, they and we've seen it with football, with West Ham. We saw them coming out with a jersey of their teammate. We saw some other teams coming out with regalia with the Ukraine flag. So in the main, football is behind Ukraine and want to see an end to the war, and they are anti-Putin. Just put it like that. And if that is the position of the United Kingdom, and that is by extension the position of British football, then that is the dilemma. And Abramovich is well aware of that, which is why he's stepped back. He doesn't say that, but this is why he has stepped back. And the question now is, what happens going forward? You know, and we heard statements from Carragher, we heard statements from Neville. And we also even heard a statement from a British MP who he was asking the question, why are we still allowing Abramovich to own a club in the UK? We should seize his assets, including his £150 million house, and including Chelsea as well. Because in documents that he was presenting to his fellow politicians, he was pointing out that Abramovich has previously admitted to paying for political influence. You know, and that he's been part of a like corruption that is tied to Putin. And for me, the question of, do you kick him out, is another question of where is football's morality? Because for me, it's a shifting scale.
Definitely.
Because the thing about Abramovich, Chuck, is that he didn't suddenly this week, when Putin and the Russian troops took the position that they took, that he came out and said, oh, okay, by the way, everyone, this is my boy, you know, and I'm on his side, this, that, or the other. This has been the case from when he took over Chelsea. If you want to go by a Wikipedia like entry, and you should do that at your own at your own peril.
Yes, it is Wikipedia.
But reports with around Abramovich is that he was the first person to suggest to the previous president of Russia that Putin should take over from him, because he had benefited from policy change and the privatization of state assets, which is how he became an oligarch, and the other oligarchs in Russia that were enforced by the previous president. So if he then identifies a guy who should take over and he's aligned to that guy, this is just a continuation of lining his own pockets and having an ally in such a high position. And this was the case, as I'm saying, before he bought Chelsea. When he bought Chelsea, he was already, if you want to put it this way, this tainted figure. and he was already aligned to like the Russian presidential seat. So if now, that is a fair question by the MP, why are we still allowing him? If this is our position, why is he still allowed to own Chelsea? And if football is going to answer, I don't even think football is in a position where they can answer that, because we were speaking about the fact that Newcastle were taken over by a Saudi consortium, and we know the issues with like Saudi Arabia and violations against human rights. So Abramovich makes the statement that he makes, and he's vague in his statement, I believe, because ultimately football doesn't have a stringent line and measures which they want him to meet in order to continue owning Chelsea. So what the heck can they actually do?
It puts everyone else in a sticky situation, because you haven't said anything as the owner, as the leader of this whole club. So us as the players and the coaches, we need to say something. Well, we support Ukraine, but we also can't say we don't support Abramovich. He's the owner.
God, this guy who's making us millionaires.
Yeah, he brought us to this club. We're successful because of him. But what do we do? And you're right about football having double standards, because they're the same people planning a World Cup in Qatar. And it's all systems go in terms of Qatar. We're all going there, regardless whether you like it or not. Stadiums are being built, tickets are being bought. We're going to Qatar. They allowed the Saudi owner to come and take over Newcastle, but now they have a problem with Abramovich. It's like the Rick Ross thing. When Reebok didn't cut ties with him because of his rape lyrics. It's like Rick Ross was talking about selling drugs and whatnot. Didn't guys have a problem with that? And now all of a sudden, because of this one lyric in his line, in his song, you're like, now we want to step back. All of a sudden, because there's war in Russia, Abramovich is dirty, or he's a tainted figure. He was always that the whole time, as you're pointing out. And so there's a double standard, and that's how people make their money. And I don't think they're gonna. They might have sanctions, as they put them, but I don't think they can actually move him, because he'd fight back. He'd point to a lot of people who are in power, who are also dirty. It might even go all the way back to about PSG, to all these other clubs. So what about them? It might even go to Man City. What about them? And how do they answer back? Because if he fights back, he opens up a can of worms, and I don't think the sport is ready for that. So they'd rather sweep whatever they can sweep under the rug and keep it going, because hopefully people forget. If the war ends, hopefully people forget. But if the war continues, then we need to look at certain things.
This is not going to go away.
Yeah.
And also because Abramovich has just taken a step back. As he says, he's a custodian of the club, and he's doing this out of the interest of the club. What is that interest? That they should not right now be seen next to someone who is also seen next to someone who's a controversial figure in the geopolitical space at the moment. So there are no grounds for football to act, in my opinion. But if the pressure keeps coming from the government in the UK, then something is going to have to happen. And the thing that I've seen being reported with Abramovich is, and which might concern Chelsea fans, is the fact that he might call in the money that he's loaned to Chelsea, because Abramovich, when he took over Chelsea, he pumped his own money into the club, and to the tune of over £1 billion. And Chelsea technically owe him this. He's not gone to collect, because he is the owner of the club, so it's circulating around himself anyway. But if he is gonna part ways with the club, then he needs his money. So before he even sells. So if he says then to whoever is coming to buy, or whoever is forcing the situation, that, well, then they need to come up with this £1 billion, and maybe like right now, that could cripple the club. That could put them in a dire financial situation, which
I would welcome. We need less opposition as Man United. We need everything to help us.
Let me ask you this question: if he were to part ways with Chelsea, whether they have to pay him back his money, or whatever the case may be, do you foresee the end of Chelsea as we know it?
Yeah, certainly, because I mean, I think his ruthless methods have ensured that Chelsea have gotten to where they've gotten to. Because I mean, he got the best of the best when the best of the best were available. He was the first to get to Mourinho and then Mourinho Mahamba got Conte Mahamba got Usari, so and so forth, getting the best. I mean, Tuchel was in a job at PSG, and effectively you'd like to think the way he parted at PSG, he was lined up by Chelsea, and he found his way into London. I do believe if he leaves, I mean, who else is going to pump money into football like that? Because people invest, sharp, but they do it gradually. They don't give you a blank check to go make your dreams happen and rebuild a team from the bottom. So I think that'll be a major change, and I don't think they'll be ready to do that.
I don't think so. You
don't think so?
I think Chelsea continues, whether Abramovich is the owner or not, and it's because of Abramovich.